Hi, you guys. This is Richard Sachs. We're back here on Lost Arts Radio. Have an incredible guest that I've been wanting to get on for a few years, and finally we got a chance to do that. This is our friend Mark McAfee, who started Organic Pastures Dairy in California. And thanks to Mark, organic raw milk is available more than it would otherwise be, and we can look at that briefly if we want to. We got a lot of things to talk about. And I've told you before that I totally trust government authority and corporate authority, and you just have to know how to translate. And one of the most demonized foods, certainly in America, has been raw milk. And among all the organic raw foods, and there are other organic raw foods that they're after, trying to stop the raw quality of them and label them as raw. That's another story. But with milk, that's been the first target. And so what I'd like to do, I always, in these discussions, like to involve people who don't know all about what we're talking about, newcomers, who may be thinking, raw milk, what does that even mean? And I thought pasteurization was so that we don't die from drinking it. And maybe we can go back a little ways to people that don't know about this issue at all and explain the background. And then we'll bring it to current issues.
Absolutely.
Okay, so welcome.
Well, let's dive on in, and thank you for inviting me on your show. I think education is really, truly the essence of where we need to go in the future, because there's so much ignorance we've been brought up into in America. We sell in farmers markets here in California, and when customers come up and they're speaking in their Ukrainian Russian accent, they say, "Give me the milk like I have back home." And they take the milk and they take 5 gallons of it, and they got these gorgeous kids and they look pretty good themselves, pretty sharp, pretty stout, beautiful teeth, hard bodies. And they have no reservations whatsoever about drinking and consuming raw milk. And nowhere in their mind is there a place that I'm supposed to be fearful of it. But you get a mom that comes from Cupertino and she's been grown and raised in America. She was like, "I'm not so sure about raw milk. Isn't that unsafe? Shouldn't it be cooked or something? It's roadkill. There's something wrong with it."
Right.
And so you see these major conflicts between moms that come out of the Eastern Europe, the Balkans or Ukraine or Russia or Poland, versus those that are grown and raised in America. So it's very much an American first world issue, the Western world, versus those that have actually embraced raw milk, which has been a friend of humanity for 10,000 years.
Right. Yeah, people in our culture think, well, wait a minute, it could have a germ in it. What would happen if in that case?
Well, what's interesting about that is it's got lots of germs in it, and those germs are absolutely critical to our health.
Right.
And those germs are bacteria, there's a biodiversity of beneficial bacteria, much like yogurt, except much more biodiverse. Yogurt has maybe 4 or 5 different kinds of bacteria on a good day.
Yeah.
Raw milk has 100, 100 different kinds of bacteria. And the food and biological matrix, the biome, the living biome of 2,500 different kinds of proteins, they're alive and well. They haven't been denatured. And so raw milk is not just a food. Raw milk is a biome transplant. Right. Let's think about what raw milk is, and then we'll get into the history of it a little bit. But think about it. Raw milk is the first food of life. The first food of life. A baby is born. It doesn't have an immune system that's worth very much. It's very weak immune system. Mm-hmm. And how does it get its immune system bolstered and built? Well, it's that bridge from mom. It's that biome transplant that mom gave it from the mammary gland, from the goat, the sheep, the horse, the reindeer, the cow, the mother human. Give milk through their glands, their mammary glands, to their babies to transfer immune system and all those proteins and all those things that are critical to defend it against the threats that come on when you have no immune system, right? So it's incredible what goes on at that delivery, at that time when you get colostrum and then raw milk that actually transfers the immune system from the mother to the baby. And so raw milk is much more than a food. It's a biome transplant for the gut. It builds the immune system. It defends the baby against viruses, including rhinoviruses and coronaviruses and all kinds of viruses, the common cold, flu, all those things create that gut biome, which is 80% of the immune system, by the way, which defends the baby against all threats. all threats by adapting quickly to overcome whatever threat's coming and go faster than the threat to beat the threat and win. If it wasn't that way by a million years of evolution, we'd all be dead. We wouldn't have thrived in perpetuity. Generation by generation, raw milk has been that food which has undergone this incredible pressure of the generation by generation push to evolve to be the optimal food for the next generation. So these generation by generation pressures are part of the science talk of how we perfected this food, which assures that the next generation is going to thrive. So that's on top of the food, the fact that there's so many things in raw milk that actually benefit the immune system, but it also nourishes completely. So it is a whole food that does all kinds of wonderful things for us. And by the way, when you pasteurize it at 160, 170, or 280 degrees, that system is annihilated. Completely annihilated. Very, very few of these proteins survive in undenatured form. The antibodies are destroyed, the immunoglobulins, all the proteins, the enzymes for sure, the probiotic bacteria, all the structures in the whole food biome that's in the milk genomics of the milk are changed and deadened to the point where it's no longer that immune transfer. So it's a powerful living food of the ages.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the documentation, of course, the main one cited by the vegans who say that milk is not good for you is the China study, and I've read it, and it has a lot of flaws in it, but one of the is that it doesn't differentiate between pasteurized and raw milk. Correct.
Right. And if you look at the most allergenic food in America, it's listed at the FDA website, it's milk, pasteurized milk.
I think they're right.
Yeah, number one. And then you go to Europe, and there's 40 studies that have been done in the last 15 years by different universities, University of Utrecht, University, the Ludwig, we can't even pronounce the last. But anyway, all these researchers in Europe have done this research on raw milk. And the kids, 80,000 kids have been studied these 40 studies. And even a meta-analysis now of the study shows that they have fewer colds, fewer ear infections, fewer asthma, fewer fever days. All these things that are measurable that are chronic in America, they have dramatically less, like up to 80% less of them because they consume raw milk and this gut biome building food. So powerful science behind this as well.
You're talking about a safe way of real immunization.
This is the oral pathway is the proper vaccination pathway in nature.
Yeah.
It's not a needle.
No, exactly, and especially when you consider what's in those things. But the other question that comes up a lot as a complaint about milk and why it's so terrible, maybe the worst food in the solar system at least, is that it's such a horrible idea to drink the milk of another species. How do you begin to explain about that? That may not be as horrible as they think.
You know what? If you look at the history of man, it was probably, if you look at the university research done at UC Davis with the International Milk Genomics Consortium, the IMGC, which I've attended all their conferences internationally. I've gone to Aarhus, Denmark, Sydney, Australia. I've been all over the world following the 100 researchers that look at this stuff. And by the way, I'm the only farmer in the room. I'm the only farmer that shows up to go to these research.
Okay.
Because I'm connected to consumers and I want to know the information so I can share with consumers, I go to the studies, I go to the source of this stuff. But it's very interesting because when you think about the origins of milk, you go back 10,000 years. You think about mankind, 5, 7, time of Christ, you pick your time. We were starving half the time. We were spending most of our time trying to figure out where we're going to kill or fish or do something to get food. Right. And food was not plentiful. It was hard to get. And a lot of farmers, a lot of hunter-gatherers, constantly scrambling to find food. And during the wintertime, people got skinny, and the rich could have food in reserve, but people were starved half the time. Well, you think about it. If you had sunshine, and you had grass, and rain once in a while, and you had a cow, a goat, a sheep, a horse, a reindeer, whatever, you had milk today. You had a whole food today. And by the way, that raw whole milk was a whole food you could survive on and nothing else you needed to thrive. And it helped your immune system. And then old milk was called kefir and it had a long shelf life. And by the way, if you strained kefir through a cloth, you made cheese. So you had cheese that could be stored indefinitely. So milk in a cow or a goat or sheep or all these animals have been man's best friend. In fact, the researchers tell us they gave us a competitive advantage against those that didn't have those animals because we had food today. We didn't have to hunt, fish, or scavenge to try to find something to eat.
Right. And as pure as it may sound, those of us who have experimented with it know that you don't do well on a complete grass diet yourself. If you get it transformed by an animal like that, right. Somehow they have the nutrients from the grass. They've
got four stomachs and we don't. Four stomachs convert that.
That could have something to do with it, yeah, because they're putting fat-based nutrients in there especially that are not really in the grass, at least not in a way that you can access.
They converted the grass into something we can eat, and we've adapted to eat very, very well. And interesting that the vegans are really having a hell of a time. I kind of appreciate where their heart's at, but their gut's really off. If you think about mother's milk, it is an animal food. It's critical that's an example, right?
That's true. That's true.
So eating an animal, to develop the brain and the nervous tissue in your body and to insulate the nerves in your body, you have to have a raw animal fat. That's how you do that. And vegans that have not breastfed or deprived their children of raw animal fats, their children actually have all kinds of brain problems and nervous problems.
Yeah. Well, I went through that myself, not as a baby, fortunately, but as a person really doing the research, by experimenting and not just the reading, which I did too, but I lived this stuff. And I went through a vegan stage and then a raw vegan stage because the raw food is like way better if you can get over the attachment to the cooking. Right. But I lost 30 pounds of muscle mass and body heat and psychological stability and all this other stuff. And I didn't want to go back to cooked food, and I thought it was an impossible issue. I wasn't going to eat meat. If I did, I would have eaten it raw. But I didn't want to do that. Raw milk was the answer, and it was amazing.
Well, I've got a sample of it here right now. Before I get into the history of raw milk a little bit in the last 100 years, and here's some raw milk kefir. If you take raw milk and you ferment it, you add some additional bacteria, you get kefir, which is like a yogurt.
Right.
But the interesting thing about raw milk, there are two kinds of raw milk in America today. One, it's intended for pasteurization. It comes from lots of different dairies. It all gets dumped into big trucks that go to a common creamery, and it all gets pasteurized. The bacteria counts are astronomically high, and includes bad bacteria, pathogenic bacteria.
So drinking that raw would be suicide, basically.
It would be high risk. Yeah. It would be high risk. Some of us may get away with it. Most of us probably not, because of the weakened immune system the American citizens we have. Now, the other raw milk is state by state regulated. Remember that first raw milk is for pasteurization. The FDA regulates that on a national basis, so there's one common standard, and it's very liberal. I mean, they allow anything to go in there, and you just cook the hell out of it to render it safe. But when you do that, you kill off all the good stuff, and you make it denatured food. The other side of the equation is raw milk intended for human consumption. And there are state laws in about 20 states that regulate that and test it. And the other states, you have to buy the milk through some kind of an alternative pathway, a cow, or you have to use some on-farm thing.
Right.
But in California, Arizona, Washington State, Utah, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Maine, South Carolina, you can buy raw milk legally in the store. And there's some other states you can, like Utah, you can as well. I'm sorry, Idaho, you can as well. But then there's a bunch of states where you have to be a part of a cow share, like Colorado. So it's just a chaotic puzzle piece of all these different rules and regulations on raw milk. In California, raw milk is 100% legal. So our products are in 450 stores, including all the Sprout stores, and it's just a #1 top seller. But it has a whole entirely different production protocol. It comes from one dairy, not multiple dairies. We test every batch every day for all the pathogens and coliforms, so we know before the milk even leaves the farm what's in the milk. That's what we do as Organic Pastures Dairy, which gives you a very, very high level of confidence that you're good to go.
Well, when you say it comes from one dairy, it actually comes from a lot of dairies. It's just that each one is tested separately, so that you know that the rating for each one is separate, right?
There are 5 brands in California that produce raw milk. Each one single sources from their own dairy. That's correct. They don't commingle from other dairies. That's correct.
Wow, that's not much, is it? 5.
No, 5. Well, there's Clairville, been doing it for 90 years.
Yeah.
They've got like 50 cows or so. There's the San Martin Dairy that's got 30 or 40 cows up in San Martin, California. There's the Duvendorfen Dairy up in Chico that's only milking like 20 cows. And then there's an assortment of a bunch of different cow shares that are not regulated. So it's very few, to be picked from. For
40 million people, 5 dairies is not that
much.
No, is there a high barrier to entry in that industry?
Yes. You got to basically have a distribution system. You have to have a brand. You have to have your own bottling facility. You have to be subject to incredibly intense review and inspection by multiple agencies. Most dairymen say, screw it, I'm going to plant almonds. I don't want to have anything to do with all the guys coming around with white coats all the time doing inspections. So you've really got to be very, very transparent and intensively persistent, consistent in what you're doing, and really intend to do it well.
And then they get into almonds, and the government says, well, you can sell raw almonds, you just have to cook them. That's in the last few years,
It's insane. Let me give a little bit of history of milk so people can get an understanding of why milk has gone sideways for the last 130 years.
Yeah.
In the late 1800s, people were moving to the city. And when they moved to the city, they brought their cow with them. Because out in the countryside, you had the family cow, you had fresh pastures and clean water from the local river and the sunshine, and never had a problem there. But you start moving towards the mid-1800s, and you started bringing the cow with you to the town, and people in the town wanted to have their raw milk too. And so they didn't have the feed in the town. So what they had was rum and distilleries. So this distiller's mash made by the grain that was made from the byproduct of distilling spirits was being fed to the cows. And there wasn't much pasture because it all turned to muck, and all these cows trampled it to death. In downtown Boston, the Boston Commons was no longer a green place to play. It was a mud hole from all the cows that laid around in it. So it became an extremely unsanitary set of conditions in the late 1800s, 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 30 years. They actually called it the milk problem, because 40% of the people that drank that milk died. The kids died. It was horrendous. Typhoid fever, tuberculosis, just unclean conditions. It was just a sanitary nightmare. But 50 miles outside of town, the Amish or whoever was out there with their cows, and the farmers out there had their cows, green grass pastures, and everything was clean and neat and nice and clean. That milk was going to the Mayo Clinic to help heal people. So you had literally polar opposites, filthy milk versus clean milk. Now, in 1893, all this blew up. In 1893, a guy by the name of Strauss brought in something called a parboiler from France, which Pasteur was using to cook alcohol, cook beer and wine to make what was beer. It was fermented to get rid of bacteria because it was interrupting the yeast and the sugar. Right. So the yeast and sugar makes alcohol, and the bacteria screws it up. So they were cooking things to kill off the bacteria. So they used these parboilers in these downtown depots where they brought this filthy milk in and cooked it. And overnight, within a few years, only 10% of the people died, not 40%, because they still had problems with the quality of water. But it was a big transition towards better. At the same time, in 1893, there was a Dr. Coit, C-O-I-T, Dr. Coit, who was a pediatrician, and he had lost a son from filthy milk, but he knew the value of clean milk. So he started the American Association of Medical Milk Commissions, the AAMMC, which was physician boards that went out and certified dairies that they were clean. They had pastures, they had sunshine, clean water. They checked the bacteria in the milk to make sure it was low. They had microscopes to look into the milk. And then milk was actually going to clinics like Mayo Clinic and other clinics, and was actually very highly prized and of high value. And at the highest point, I believe there was over 1,000 dairies in America that were certified by the AAMMC and Dr. Coit. Now, the last dairy to be certified by the AAMMC was the Altadena Dairy in Los Angeles, and they produced the last gallon of milk in May of 1999.
Wow!
And so,
what happened to those guys? Where did they go? Do you know?
It was the Stuvies. The Stuvies owned the Altadena brand. They sold off to Dean's Foods and made a bunch of money. Okay. And they stopped producing raw milk, and the Stuvies sold their entire operations to Dean's Food, which used pasteurization, and the Altadena brand continued, but not with raw. The Stewies moved out of the area with their tens of millions of dollars and established an organic dairy and operations up in Oakdale, California. So they left the organic environment, but they became very close friends of mine. And Lloyd Stewie actually taught me everything he knew. And I actually mentored it under him, and he helped me quite a bit. So hats off to the Stewies.
Yeah.
They helped out when Organic Pastures area kind of picked up the ball that they left in the field. In 1999, we came into existence in 2000, and a lot of the old Altadena customers became our customers. So that's kind of a story of 130 years of milk, or 150 years if you go back to Jamestown in 1600s, about raw milk being a fantastic food. In fact, in Jamestown in 1630, you were issued a cow, a musket, and told, if you don't have a cow or musket, you're probably not going to live. Because you needed to have that milk today, and the musket, you needed to protect yourself and shoot deer. So It was kind of an interesting time where a cow and a musket was the beginning of America.
Very interesting. Yeah. And you said, going back thousands of years when people were using milk and the strained kefir made cheese and you could save the cheese indefinitely, they didn't have very advanced refrigerators thousands of years ago. So how does cheese do out of the refrigerator, and how long does that save? It
does really, really well. Cheese does really, really well in a cool environment, like 60 degrees, like a cave, cave-aged cheeses, right? So, land of milk and honey, it wasn't pasteurized, neither the honey or the milk. What would Jesus eat is a good question. It would be raw milk, thank you very much.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
So you really go back and you appreciate the fact that when the mother died, even the ancient Hindus had a mantra that said the cow is the mother of the universe, because if the human mother died, it would be the cow that go to the sheep that would nourish the baby, and the baby would thrive. Yeah. So in multiple cultures, not just Christianity, but Muslims and Hindus, they all embrace the cow as a phenomenal resource to build that incredible food for humans without killing her. You could eat the cow if you had to, but the bottom line was she provided a perpetual source of food for you, and she had a calf every couple of years, and that calf grew up and did the same thing again, and it was just this great partnership with nature. And we forget that as modern humans, because we go to the store and there's always milk there, except for 2 weeks ago when there was a run in the store and there was no milk in the stores.
Well, the Arabs, too, used raw camel milk.
Absolutely.
Right? And some of them still do. It's just, I don't think camels don't produce very much milk per animal.
A couple quarts a day, not much.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Okay, so that answers the refrigeration question. And you mentioned the Mayo Clinic and other places before it was illegal to use natural medicine. And before that was demonized so much. Now, they weren't, prior to 1910, they weren't competing with the drug industry. And it was pretty much a market-driven healthcare system. And, there were sanitariums under people like Dr. Porter and Dr. Cruz, and their primary treatment was milk fasting on raw milk, right? Correct. And I think that probably the most disturbing thing to happen to medicine in the last 100 years, besides what we're talking about in 1910, 1920s with Porter and those guys at the Mayo Clinic, is the recognition, the forced recognition by the FDA that fecal transplants save 93% of those that are on death's door with C. diff, Clostridium difficile, in the ICU. So you've run out of all your magical antibiotics, and the patient's ready to die because C. diff is an antibiotic-resistant bacterial infection that's consuming them in the ICU, and they're gonna pull the cord and they're dead. Well, fecal transplants, good feces from a healthy human, are used now to literally save people's lives. And the FDA freaks out that this is actually coming to pass, because C. diff, Clostridium difficile, is killing 25,000 people a year in the ICU. So when your antibiotics run out and you don't have any more antibiotics, and the bacteria that are in your gut are antibiotic resistant, you're circling the drain, you're going to die. You're going to be septic and you're going to die. By the way, go get some healthy feces from a healthy person and put it in a blender with some sterile water, some saline, and flush the lower gut with it. And 93% of the time, these people are fine within 2 days. Without the $20,000 for the hospital, basically.
Right? Yeah. Now, that's the shit, literally.
Yeah. Very interesting.
And that's extremely disruptive to the FDA, that thinks they have to come up with a drug when you can't really define what a fecal biome transplant is, because it just comes from another human that has a healthy gut biome.
And hopefully that is not on 30 different drugs, and so, that wouldn't be work as well.
They specifically look for a person who eats a good, like a Weston A. Price diet and good foods, because those foods support the good bacteria in the gut, and you have the balance of the good bacteria as well as the food that feed them, which make good fecal material, right? And so you take that, and that becomes the transplant that's life-saving.
Well, originally, real science was based on questioning everything. not on defending acceptable information.
Thank you.
One of the fallacies that I think is really doing a lot of harm to the image of raw milk is the idea of lactose intolerance.
Oh yeah.
And I was one of those people that seemed to have all the signs of that, and I had to think about it for a long time, and finally I realized, wait a minute, if the enzymes and the bacteria in the gut are not the right kind to break down the milk, where do you think those come from?
Well,
they come from the milk.
Yes, they come from the milk.
And it took like 3 months, and eventually that was just, resolved that way. You just have to wait.
That's why yogurt and kefir, even pasteurized yogurt and pasteurized kefir, are not generally associated with lactose intolerance. But raw milk, very few people have any problems with digesting raw milk, because it has all the enzymes necessary to digest itself when it gets warm.
Exactly. And they just have to become the dominant strains in the gut, right?
And you think about the villi and the intestines, the border edges of the villi, those little spines in our gut, the villi. They're all covered with the bacteria necessary to do the digestive work, like lactase production, so lactose can be digested. And so these bacteria you find in kefir and in raw milk, they actually are those bacteria that are necessary to colonize the border edges of the villi in the intestines. But when we take antibiotics, or we have chemotherapy, or we eat a bunch of foods with preservatives, those villi become literally a wasteland without they're a desert without good colonized bacteria or bad bacteria. So you need to have the colonization effect to make the gut biome a living, breathing, wonderful, best partner for you in health and in digestion.
Right. And of course, everything in the body, contrary to modern idea of specialization, everything's related to everything else.
Yes.
So when you consider organs that are important to some people, like the brain, for example, that's also related to the gut, right?
Totally.
And that's why Wakefield got completely demonized, because he was just asking the question, maybe there's some relation. These kids that are having neurological problems, their gut biome is destroyed.
Well, if you eat a bunch of foods that are highly processed with 60 different ingredients in it, with a bunch of colored stuff, preservative stuff, and sweeteners and hormones, and God knows how much Roundup residue is in there, and then you expect your gut, and you take a bunch of sugar, you're guzzling sugar. Worse than sugar is all the diet drinks that don't have sugar but trick your brain into thinking it's sugar, and you got all these funky stuff going on. You got candida that's rampant. You got leaky gut syndrome going on, where food particles are getting into your bloodstream. It causes food allergies. You got yourself a house on fire. You got a mess. So fixing the leaky gut, getting your gut biome back intact with a good mucosal lining and all your villi with a good colonization going on, that's the work of raw milk kefir. That's the work of bone broth. That's the work of all these whole foods. That's kimchi and sauerkrauts and all these wonderful whole foods, the foods of the generations, good meat from grass-fed cows. Those things build the gut biome so you don't have all these problems. But right now we have a major problem because the immune system, the digestive tract are all one. And they feed the brain, they feed the body, they create neurotransmitters in the brain. And we wonder why we have school shootings with 16-year-old kids all the time. Their brains are screwed up so bad because their gut isn't working.
Well, in addition to that, all of them are on drugs too, psychotropic drugs.
Yeah,
medical drugs,
Yep.
So this is such an important industry to bring back. If people wanted to go into it, it sounds like it's almost impossible to do at this point, right?
No, it's not impossible. Anything you want to set your heart to, you can do. It may not be able to build an organic pastures dairy overnight, but you can go buy 3 cows and start a cow share. You can if you want to do it. But I've always said this, and I believe it's really, really true. You don't sell raw milk. You teach raw milk. You teach raw milk.
What do you mean? So explain that.
You don't sell raw milk. You present raw milk to a bunch of consumers that think that raw milk's the worst thing in the world. They look at you and go, I don't want that stuff. They'll walk right by it.
Right.
But if you say, I don't have any raw milk to sell, I've got something I want to teach you about your gut. I want to share with you some incredible values about how you build a strong immune system and the kinds of foods that nourish your immune system. And by the way, did you know that the genetic information in and on your body comes from the bacteria in your body, not your mom and dad? 23,000 genes came from mom and dad, but you've got tens of millions of genes because you've got a 10-to-1 relationship of bacteria count to your body to human cell in your body. But it's 100-to-1 when it comes to genomics. And we just figured this out in 2003. We spent, $4 billion and 12 years to figure it out. It was the military people that figured it out because they were worried about radiation affecting sailors. So we now know that bacteria absolutely are critical to health and the genomics of how we present well. But those bacteria only thrive if they eat whole, good food. Well, the interesting thing about raw milk kefir is it feeds the bacteria and it also inoculates with beneficial bacteria. And that's been wisdom of the ages forever and ever. Right. So you kind of have to sort back to what is it that you teach people, and then to say, well, what is that food? Well, raw milk kefir, raw milk. It's been around for 10,000 years, and they'll run to the store and get it because they now know and understand they need to feed the gut to be well.
Exactly. And if they don't live in California where they can get Organic Pastures milk, I guess they could look at that site, realmilk.com, right? Is that from Weston Price?
Absolutely. They have a fantastic site there. The Raw Milk Institute has a finder for all the Raw Milk Institute listed farmers. There's 20 of them in Canada and the United States that actually use extremely high standards and submit bacteria counts every month. And we have actually done research on them, and we have peer-reviewed articles out now in literature showing that the raw meat dairies are extremely safe. However, we now have a kind of a consensus across America that if you're going to do raw milk, you do it well. So at the realmilk.com website, there is a raw milk finder, and you'll find raw milk all over America. And I would say that you have a range of those that are doing a marginal job versus those that are doing a fantastic job. So you have to do a little bit of work on your own behalf to make sure you've got a good, reputable source, but it's certainly there.
Okay, so you find a source on that site, say you live in another state somewhere.
Right.
What kind of questions do you want to ask to know if it's safe, if it's a good product?
What you would want to find out is, okay, do you do any testing of your milk? What are your coliform levels? Are they low? Are they high? How frequently do you test your milk? They would ask them, how long does your milk last when being refrigerated? If it's got a 3-day shelf life, probably got a little sanitary problem going on. If your milk lasts 14 to 16 days with good refrigeration, you're probably very clean. The problem is unclean milk is really not the problem. It's the fact that we have a really weakened immune system in America. As a host, bad bugs can make you sick really bad and make some kids really sick because our immune system has been pounded with antibiotics and we have weakened immune systems. So you want to make sure that milk you have doesn't have E. coli 0157H7, which can attack a weakened immune system. You and I have been drinking raw milk forever and ever. Even if we drank some kind of dirty raw milk, we'd probably be just fine because our immune system would do just fine with it. But you got to remember, when you're serving the public, those that have immune systems that are weakened or strong, you can't differentiate one from the other. They're coming at you. They want raw milk. So you've got to be a quality standard to assure that the lowest common denominator, not the highest, can be taken care of. And that's where you got a good reputation, but doing a good job. Everybody can drink your milk if you're doing a clean, good job.
Yeah, and it should last, as you say, for 2 to 3 weeks, right?
Correct. Correct. If there's bubbles rising in the milk in a few days, that's the coliforms creating carbon dioxide that's actually starting to ferment early. And that's telling you that somebody didn't do a good job of the early on when they milked the cow. They didn't clean the udder properly, they didn't clean their milking equipment properly, and they didn't chill their milk properly.
And the good milk that is treated properly, when it finally sours, it doesn't become dangerous either at that point.
No. It wants to become your best friend kefir.
Yeah.
It really does. Milk is intended to sour. It lacto ferments. And so the way you initiate that process to make it lacto-ferment quicker is add some pasteurized yogurt with active bacteria into it if you don't have cultures, or kefir grains, or take some raw milk kefir and add it, because what you want to do is inoculate it to make it go down that pathway of fermentation more rapidly.
Okay, and when it does, I guess it would tend to separate, right, into
it does.
Solid and liquid components.
It becomes the whey and the casein. The casein is the cheese part, and the whey is the fluid part. And that's the lacto-fermentation process. The pH will drop from 6.5 down to like 3.8, which gives it a protective quality, the fact that bad bacteria don't like to live in low pH milk.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay, and then if you end up with the solid part becoming cheese, for example, and you've got 3 optional ways of saving it: cool, room temperature, refrigerated, or frozen. Right. How do those compare to each other? Well,
there's nothing wrong with either all 3 of those. They all work. However, it depends on what you're going to make out of it, right? If you're going to make a cheese out of it, or a kefir out of it, or what are you going to do with it is the question.
Well, let's just say cheese, because people, may buy raw cheese and think of what's the best way to store it. And sometimes at room temperature, there are certain kinds of molds that turn up on some of it.
Oh, so absolutely.
Are those okay or bad, or how do you understand what's going on there?
Milk, cheese has an affinity for growing mold on the outside of it. And that's actually part of the preserving process. The mold shouldn't be on the inside, it should be the outside if it's preserved properly. And most cheesemakers have something that they wipe on the outside if it's not plastic shrink wrapped. They'll put olive oil on the outside, or salt water or something. It's actually a surface preservative that keeps it free of a mold. Or they'll enhance it with actually adding specific kinds of mold. Roquefort mold, or something that will actually ferment it in a certain direction to give it flavor. If you remember, hanging cheese in a cloth in a cheese cave filled with all kinds of bacteria and molds is not a sterile place. It's very much a biologically active, diverse place. And that's why when you go into the Roquefort cheese in France, it smells like Roquefort blue cheese.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the name blue cheese, I guess, came from, is certain kinds of mold, right?
That's exactly right.
That weren't bad.
No, they're good.
We were talking about people like Dr. Porter and Dr. Cruz and others that, if you read their books, they basically resolved almost every kind of health issue that they came across by feeding people for many weeks on nothing but milk. And is there anybody doing anything like that anymore? I can't find anybody.
Well, Dr. Hippocrates, 2,400 years ago in ancient Greece, he said, "Do no harm as a doctor. Do no harm." That's the Hippocratic Oath. All disease begins in the gut, and let food be your medicine and medicine be your food.
Yeah.
Our God-given bodies, if you're not spiritual, that's fine too, but we have in our bodies the incredible ability to heal thyself if given the proper nutrients and set of conditions to live in.
Right.
Sunshine, nutrients, vitamins, nutrition, bacteria, all these things. We are given the mechanisms inside to self-heal. We don't need a drug to do it. We don't need surgeries to do it. Although they're helpful in some cases, we certainly need those things to help us get through a tight spot. But if we really, really think about it, we are genomically self-healers if we have the correct fuel. And that is something that we've defueled our system. We haven't given the right kind of food to our bodies for it to heal properly. Modern sugar-rich foods with antibiotics and preservatives are the antithesis opposite of what you need for your biome to thrive.
Yeah.
But yet we're addicted to it, and we're being fed it every day by this culture we have of buying food at the store.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in fact, now we're being programmed to add another component to that, which is probably one of the most dangerous ingredients that I know of, and that's fear. And when you go outside with the programs that are going around, it's like people are just terrified. If a germ gets them, they've had it, and there's nothing they can do. And they may wait to destroy the whole national economy, just keeping people in terror. And it seems to me that there are other approaches that might be better.
Well, I think that the natural immunity process is per oral. It's what we eat. It's the inoculum of biodiversity. Dr. Annette Jewett, UCLA cancer researcher, he and I are friends, been friends for years and years, done lots of research. He said, there's two things that really build a strong immune system. One is high levels of a diversity of good bacteria. High levels of a diversity of good bacteria, absolutely critical for your gut biome to function properly. And number two, the food that feeds it.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. Biodiversity of good bacteria, and even some bad bacteria help out because it exercises your immune system to create antibodies. And the food that feed it. Well, what would be the food that feeds it? Well, those are all the whole foods. Those are all the unprocessed foods. Those are all the natural foods, the ones without preservatives, antibiotics, Roundup, and all the other garbage that are put in there. They're very short ingredient lists of maybe 3 or 4 things, nothing more. That's it. That's what feeds the good bacteria. The people that embrace that lifestyle rarely have the flu, rarely get sick. If they do, they get over it really quickly. Prince Charles, from the information I know, and I've checked this from multiple sources, Prince Charles and the royal family has been a big supporters of raw milk forever and ever. The Queen Mom drank raw milk till she was 103 years old, had 6 cows in Buckingham Palace for years and years until they kicked him out. He just got COVID-19, and it was a very, very mild case, and he's over it. And he's 73, I think, years old, something like that.
Right.
So the bottom line is, if you eat well and your gut is well, you will be well. And by the way, an immune system that's strong is adaptive and resilient. It's faster than the bug that's chasing you.
Yeah.
And there's so many elements found in raw milk that are antiviral. Lactoperoxidase, lactoferrin, all these things are absolutely antiviral, and they keep viruses in check. So they're there in the unprocessed form. And so your body has the ability to create immunity for whatever threat's coming towards it in general terms. There's exceptions probably someplace out there. But, think back just, 100 years ago, the milk maidens that milked the cows, they were immune to smallpox because they all had cowpox. The cowpox is a weak strain of a pox, and they would be exposed to that through consumption of raw milk and being close to the cows. But when smallpox came around that killed everybody, they were immune.
Yeah.
So there's this beautiful relationship between animals and people and antibodies and viruses and all these kinds of things that we're now missing because we've moved to the city.
Right.
And we're eating crap food that is just decimating our gut biome. And unfortunately, our Centers for Disease Control, our modern doctors training, and our FDA are not talking about how you can build a strong immune system, because guess what? They're looking for the next drug, which is going to be a year and a half from now, which may or may not work. They're looking for that we need to be for that resilient antibody builder that we have in our gut biome that works 24/7 all day long, all year long, that's going to deal with next year's flu, next year's virus. Before it even hits anybody, you're already going to be antibody resistant to it. So that's what's missing in America right now, is a good immune system that's adaptive and resilient.
The best form of getting all this in seems to be the whole raw milk itself with all the components.
Correct.
If you have to get it without the whey part in the form of cheese, what do you think? How is the evaluation of that for the protective ability compared to the whole milk? What do you think?
Let me give you an answer to that based on some science. Dr. J.P. Lyles, Lalles, did a study in Europe, in France. And he was looking at the French paradox. And we all love the French paradox because it was how the red wine was going to save us all. Drink your red wine. It's got the resveratrol, and the cardiac disease was lower, and inflammation was lower in your body. And the French Mediterranean diet was a great diet because the French wine was there. Right. Well, that's true to a certain extent. But he went further into that French paradox study and realized these guys are all eating 2.5 pounds of raw cheese every week. And he looked at that and said, boy, you combine the red wine a little bit, that's fine, but you need to drink a lot more of it than would be healthy for you to actually get the resveratrol treatment that you needed. But the 2.5 pounds of raw cheese has an enzyme called alkaline phosphatase. And alkaline phosphatase is completely destroyed in pasteurization. In fact, the test for effective pasteurization is called the negative alpha phosphatase test. But raw cheese and raw milk has all kinds of this. It's the third most prevalent enzyme found in raw milk and raw cheese. It's actually found in the butterfat molecule, most of it. So like 50% of it's carried in the butterfat molecule. So here he is in the French paradox saying, This is a peer-reviewed research paper, by the way, PubMed, NIH, highest standard of review, showing, hey, the French paradox, the people that eat this Mediterranean diet with all this raw cheese have these enzymes and have these wonderful elements that are not denatured by pasteurization. They are probably a bigger part of the reduction of inflammation and resistance to infection than perhaps other factors. So there's science behind that, big time.
Yeah, so if cheese is the only form you can get, it's still super valuable.
Make sure it's truly raw cheese, not some fake raw cheese that's been thermalized at 135 to 440 degrees and then calling it raw. Make sure it's actually raw.
160. I mean, I've called, we don't have to mention them here, but I've called the biggest distributors and producers, and they say, 160, it's raw, and we know it's raw because the government says so. And that's the end of the question.
That is the biggest crock of crap and lie to you, straight bold to your face that ever existed. Anything that gets about 110, 115 degrees, you start losing stuff real fast. In fact, in our bodies, a fever above 106 actually kills brain cells. It starts decoupling enzyme action. So really, I mean, truly raw is body temperature or less.
Yeah, yours is like 103 or 102 or 3 maximum, I think, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So I promised you I'd watch our time because I know you have to go. So
yes.
What do you want people to remember other than your site, organicpastures.com, as a bottom line to use as guidance in all this stuff?
Raw milk is the first food of life. It's literally a fantastic food to build your gut biome. 80% of your immune system is your gut biome. And if it's healthy, you'll be healthy. If it's healthy, you'll have you'll have a resilient immune system that deals with most any threat coming towards you if you embrace a whole food diet. Get away from the sugars, get away from the antibiotics, get away from all the preservatives and the highly processed foods with lots of ingredients and ingredients you can't pronounce. If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the survival, that is the mantra for today. You need to build your gut biome to be well. Raw milk is a fantastic food to do that. That's its intent in life, is to build an immune system that did not exist before. And raw milk kefir is superfood for the gut.
Yeah, we got to make some little changes in the regulations so that you could sell all your products nationwide.
We're working on it.
Are you?
We're working on it. I think what we need to do is put a lot of pressure on the FDA and just tell them that, guys, it's not working for us. We're not going to take drugs. Drugs don't create immune systems. We need whole food nutrition. And by the way, your super allergenic pasteurized dairy ain't doing it for us. We need raw milk. And by the way, they figured out the science on how to absolutely assure extremely low risk. And by the way, using FDA approved tests, the AOAC lab tests are FDA approved for pathogen testing. They're there. You get all the data back in 36 hours. All 4 data points: Campylobacter, Salmonella, E. coli 015787, and Listeria. All data back in 36 hours. So there's no excuse for not having very, very safe raw milk, including those things that might concern the FDA.
Right, and they've invented something called refrigerated trucks now. So
yes, they have.
Actually do it. Okay,
Yep.
Hold on and we'll say goodbye in the break. That was great, Mark. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Okay, you guys. Well, I thought that was great. There goes Mark McAfee from Organic Pastures, and website organicpastures.com if you want to look at that. If you're in California, you can get milk, cream, raw milk, raw cream, raw butter, several raw cheeses. And I mean, he's really, we didn't get a chance to talk about it during our fast discussion there, but he's part of the reason that raw milk is still legal in California and in America. He's done a lot of really incredible work and teaching all over the world, living in it as an example of what he's teaching, which is super inspiring, I think. Great person, deserves everybody's support. If you want, if you can't find good raw milk where you are, organic raw milk, and it has to be organic, non-organic, I don't think would be safe to drink. And organic milk that's pasteurized, I don't think that's a very good thing either to consume. The organic idea is good, but doesn't go far enough. And so if you can't find good organic raw milk, you can get your health food store to order organic raw cheese from Organic Pastures. And the reason that, as he said, it's not as good to order it from most other places is that it says raw on it. And I'm not going to mention the biggest producer of it. It's a farm conglomerate where they process it together, and they say raw, and the government says, yeah, it's raw because it's not boiled to death, but it's 160 last time I talked to them, and it says raw cheese, and it's not. I don't think it's a good thing to eat at all, so I wouldn't recommend that. But you can get your health food store to order Organic Pastures raw cheese, and I've checked it out so thoroughly and talked to all their guys and the technicians at their processing lab and everything. It's really well done. And it's good to know that it saves in refrigeration and even in cool storage for a long time. So, this is a great health service, in my opinion, what Mark and Organic Pastures are doing, and they need to be appreciated all over the place. So hopefully we'll have him back. And like I said, in my own experience, having been vegan and then raw vegan and really not wanting to eat meat because eating meat's not really very good for the animals that are eaten. I mean, if you were one of them, I don't think you'd vote for it either. But the animal fat, which is demonized so much in so many of the raw vegan health programs and things like that, in my experience, I've only been experimenting with it for, several decades, but in my experience, it's just incredibly essential. And I don't know the ultimate reason. It seems to me from an idealistic, theoretical point of view that, if we ate a piece of organic fresh fruit that was ripe once a week or something, that should be enough to sustain us. But in this environment that we're living in now, I tried that, not necessarily once a week, but I tried total organic, fresh, ripe fruitarian diet, and just like most of the other people on that, got like a scarecrow and real jittery, and I don't call that high energy at all. It's something totally different. And, it's missing stability elements and certain fat-based nutrients that are not accessible that I could tell, or anybody I've ever talked to. I haven't seen anyone demonstrate that works. And the same with most of the raw vegans eat cooked food too, so they're not really a good test. But the ones that are totally raw, they try to make up for the situation with heavy use of supplements. And I was interested, well, can we do it without that? I haven't found a way not to need iodine at this point. Still open to that when it gets on the soil through using seaweed and other sources of it like that, certain kinds of rock dust and things. It may not be necessary. I haven't gotten to that point, but I have found a way to feel fine without any other kind of supplementation at all, other than possibly use of certain herbs and things like that. But the raw milk made that possible, and I still use everything else, basically raw vegan, but without the raw milk, it didn't work. And so there's something really valuable in that, and it's good to know from Mark, if you can't get raw milk, and you can get raw cheese, that's essentially, maybe not exactly identical, but it's enough to take care of you, and it's available all over the country from organicpastures.com, who is not paying me to say any of this stuff. That's why I hate doing paid commercials, because it's really hard to tell whether you're totally honestly saying that something is good, or whether you're saying, well, I'm going to say it's good because I need the check this week and I'm not doing that. We're getting nothing. I'm not even getting a piece of free cheese from Mark. It's just because, I think it's really good, and it's the most conscientious raw dairy. Well, there's a couple of others in California that are smaller, and he mentioned some of them on the show that you can hear about that may distribute in some places in California. But the federal government, with the health mafia, has made it illegal to send it across state lines. And my theory is that they let you send raw cheese across state lines because, first of all, it's aged, and they're thinking maybe it's not as spectacular for health as raw milk, so at least they could prevent that. And now they're trying to prevent the really raw cheese from circulating by saying, just label it raw, cook it at 160, 180, whatever you want, and we won't get you in trouble. And so they're eliminating raw food, especially milk and cheese and nuts and things like that, by saying, we'll just cook them and call them raw. it requires a little bit more sophistication as a consumer to see through it and check out your sources and talk to the producer, talk to the raw milk producers on realmilk.com. And as Mark said, if you want further backup and information and maybe help with finding it, rawmilkinstitute.org, which I'll have to look at too. I'm not familiar with it yet. I think those are the main message. Look in nature and look in whole, non-processed foods. And I would add raw foods of all kinds are, in my experience, by far more healing than anything cooked at all. And even if I were a carnivore, which I'm not, if I were a real carnivore, I would eat the whole body of the animal. I'd have the stomach acid like a tiger does to digest bones. And I don't think we're designed to do that, aside from the fact that if you do eat meat, you have to turn off compassion selectively. And that works against expanding consciousness, which is our main objective to learn while we're here, which is a deep subject. And if you want to get more into that and more into the details of the physical healing principles and laws that have been taught for thousands and thousands of years, adapted to today, then I would invite you to join Planetary Healing Club if you want to. We do charge some money for that. We don't have commercials on the regular shows, but there are dues that go to support the nonprofit, the Lost Arts Research Institute, that keeps all this work going, and we need support, and we're not doing commercials, so we really need it. And if you have resources and you want to help us, besides joining Planetary Healing Club, if you want to work at a deeper level on yourself, planetaryhealingclub.com. But you can also support us at lostartsradio.com. There's a donate button, and lostartsresearchinstitute.org has a donate button, which is deeply appreciated and needed. And then we've got a Subscribestar page that Doug got set up, and that is subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. You can see all the different levels of support that are available there and what you get for each one. It's, we're just hoping that this is reaching somebody that values it, and so we can get enough support to keep going. And hopefully, if it's really successful in bringing up funds from those who want to support us, we can go ahead and build our school, which is one of the projects that we've got on hold pending finding the money to do that. It has to be clean source. It can't be with strings attached or anything like that. But if you want to see more about that, look at lostartsresearchinstitute.org. In case we disappear from the main platforms, which is always possible in the atmosphere of censorship, which is intensifying noticeably right now, then go to, while you're still thinking of it, before you forget, go to Brighteon.com, BRIGHTEON.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. It was started by a friend of ours in a format that is not going to be censored, and you can subscribe to channels there now. It's just starting, so go to that channel, Brighteon.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. Subscribe, and you get notified, and you can get on our mailing list in case you can't find us anywhere else, and you can sign up on that with a name and an email address so we can stay in touch. And we're not really using it right now, but it's available in case we do get cut off, and that's at lostartsradio.com. Name and email address, you'll find it easily there, or write to info@lostartsradio.com. And if you have questions or show suggestions or anything like that, we have a live show on Saturdays, which is 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern Time, called Lost Arts Radio Live, usually relevant to current events or current issues in the news, or that should be in the news. And anything that you want us to get into covering on that, feel free to offer that too. And then half an hour after that 1 hour show ends, we have the Planetary Healing Club meeting, and you can join that if you want to. It's about physical and other levels of work on yourself that will help you to get through everything that's happening right now a lot easier in a group that is supportive of that. That's at planetaryhealingclub.com. I think that's most of what I was trying to remember to tell you guys about. And we'll keep having the Sunday shows as long as we can, free and public, and educational guests. And all the archives of that are available at the moment on the major platforms. And there's a lot of educational material there. I think you'll like it. Thank you to DiamondDiscAudio.com and Doug Diamond for making the show possible and doing all the technical work to keep us on the air. And for all of you willing to share some time with us, I really appreciate it. It's an honor to know all of you, and look for those of you who want to go further at the next club meeting, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. Otherwise, we'll put up as many of these videos as we can, and I'll read all the suggestions and comments and questions and anything that you want to email in, richard@lostartsradio.com. I think that's about it. Take care of yourself. That's always what we're trying to educate for and encourage you to do, not only so that you'll be okay, but you're a good influence on everybody else, inspiring them. And there's a lot more to do if you keep yourself in good shape. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio on Subscribestar.com. Just go to Subscribestar.com/LostArtsRadio to find our rewards program, offering 10 different giving levels starting at just $5 a month. We offer incredible value for any rewards level, from extra monthly interview videos not available publicly to subscription-based Planetary Healing Club videos once, twice, or 3 times a month, to private counseling sessions with Lost Arts Radio host Richard Sachs, to tech help with me, Doug Diamond. We even have one option where you can be the star on Lost Arts Radio as our guest on a specially produced show just for you. We conduct an interview with you and broadcast it to our growing network and listenership. Our Subscribestar levels are one of a kind and offer great rewards for any budget. Please help support Lost Arts Radio. We can't do it without you. With increasing censorship on many of our channels, we really need your support today to keep doing what we're doing. As Richard says, we're not even at survival level yet. Lost Arts Radio has 3 weekly shows. Lost Arts Radio Live each Saturday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, which is a live stream currently on multiple platforms in case we get banned from some of the larger ones. Right now, we're on 2 YouTube channels, Facebook Live, Periscope, which is Twitter, Twitch, and DLive. You can access these broadcasts by going to www.lostartsradio.com/live for all the links to those channels. The Planetary Healing Club meets right after Lost Arts Radio Live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Saturday nights. And our Sunday show with guests airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Sunday nights on our Blog Talk Radio channel, our YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and on Brighteon. Be sure to sign up for our free email list just in case we do get banned on big tech's platforms. It's just a matter of time, really. They don't like the stuff we talk about, and they do not want the truth out there. In fact, they have already attacked us numerous times. Join our free email list so we can let you know where we are and how to access our shows. The sign up button is right on the top right on most pages of our website. The best starting point for all things Lost Arts Radio is our main site, lostartsradio.com, where you can find the hottest news selection videos that we curate just for you. Those are on the homepage and added to daily, as well as articles and breaking news about information you really need to know. Our show archives, the 10 most recent shows, are right on our homepage, as well as our Blog Talk Radio page at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, or just click the All Things Radio Show tab right on our website. We're in the podcast directory on iTunes, and all of our shows except the banned ones are on our YouTube channels at Lost Arts Radio and at Diamond Disc. Our Brighteon page is really taking off, and we often have editors' picks videos right on their homepage. Visit brighteon.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. On our site, you can also access our free listener forum as well as sign up for the Planetary Healing Club, which is just $25 a month, where you get private access to a one-on-one interaction with host Richard Sachs and myself and the other club members who participate live. More info can be found at planetaryhealingclub.com. We're providing solutions in there to make the world a better place. Come join us. Stay tuned, because up next, you'll get to hear a really great song by an independent artist that we're doing our best to support. Go to lostartsradio.com/music for the full list of all the great songs and bands that we spin on our audio-only podcast shows. If you're in a band and want to submit a song for consideration for airplay on Lost Arts Radio, visit my website at diamonddiscaudio.com for more information about the music placement, mastering, and mixing work that I do. Thanks again for listening to and supporting Lost Arts Radio. We love having you as part of our family to learn, experience, and grow with.
I will save the world, then someday get the girl. All the power that I possess couldn't guarantee success, but I will. Heroes come in all disguises, some with belts and cool devices, but not me. I'm invincible to sadness in the world. Some would say my superpower could save the world.